Hey there everybody, Abel here, bringing you a quick little Halloween list of spooky dooky games for the season. Now, this isn't exactly a top whatever list, and these are going to be thrown in here in no particular order, so just keep that in mind. These are just what I think are some timeless, spooky dooky games. Let's get right into it. Starting off the list, we'll kick this off with a game series that I'm pretty sure everyone's at least played one installment of by now. Resident Evil franchise. Now, I've personally only ever played the numbered Resident Evils 1, 2, so on. And I also had the misfortune to play Raccoon City. But let's not dwell on that, shall we? Now, Resident Evil was one of the first horror type games that I ever played growing up as a kid, and I specifically remember as a kid trying to play the games alongside with a couple friends of mine and just being completely unable to because, well, frankly, we were all scared out of our minds by it. It was a different time, a scarier time, a polygon shaped time PlayStation. Anywho, as for Resident Evil 4, the obvious contender on screen, I played the bejesus out of this game. I played it back on the PlayStation 2, GameCube, downloaded it on the 360, and I just bought it on the PC. Awesome sales. Now, what made Resident Evil 4 stand out from prior installments and installments even up till today, not including the Revelation series, is its introduction to things like the upgrading system, which made the game feel more like an RPG rather than just a straightforward survival horror. Granted, it still kept the horror survival essence, with the attaché case being, of course, only able to carry the bare necessities of life. But the game did still manage to keep its horror elements while bringing in some new ones. If you haven't played it, what are you waiting for? Give this shit a try. Next up is the game that I've put on a very, very high pedestal in life. That game being the original Bioshock. Now, at the time, Bioshock was an interesting pickup for myself, considering the fact that I had picked it up while I was on vacation, and I wouldn't be getting back home until the night before the first day of class. So that night I had to cram a lot of gameplay in for this one. Now, at the time, Bioshock's graphics, be them for the environments, the obvious excessive water texture, enemy design, weapon design, just everything was just so spot on, and even till today I believe holds up pretty well. The use of powers and weapons and the environment itself during combat worked out incredibly well, and to this day I just see as almost flawless. Almost. Now, though the story of the game does fall a little flat on its face by the end, it's the ride getting there that I think everyone that's played it has remembered. And being that this game is as old as it is, if you haven't played it by this point, again, what are you waiting for? Jump on that noise. An amazing game that I think still holds up till today, and keeps itself with a little bit of a spooky dooky factor, Bioshock. I loved it when it came out, still love it today, and I can't stop playing it, no matter how badly I want to. Next up on the list, we have a game that actually paralyzed me with fear for the first little bit of time that I tried to put into it. Condemned: Criminal Origins, or as my cousin would call it, Criminal Oranges. Yeah, it doesn't hold up much anymore on that one. I played this originally back on the Xbox 360, and I had played it as the downloadable demo at the time, and in the very beginning of it, the first enemy you encounter, I didn't even want to go near him. He ran by, I'm just standing there with my gun, saying, I don't want to play this anymore, man. I don't want to play this anymore. But after a little perseverance and determination nation, stuck it out and ended up completing the demo in record time. Took me nearly forever. Unfortunately, the graphics in this game do not hold up by any means. But at the time, and I guess even through a quick passing today, the overall graphics can still be pretty creepy to look at, but it's just another case of the environment just saturated with terror and fear and horror. With environments including, I believe, a school, burned out buildings, and the most terrifying of them all, an apple orchard. Who'd have thought that'd be terrifying? The story is a little forgettable, but it's just the events leading up to the grand crescendo at the end that just take the cake. The use of melee weapons was actually a really interesting take they did with this. Instead of having players focus on using firearms, you're actually dissuaded against that because there's no ammo pickups. Once a weapon's dry, it is useless. So a lot of the times, you'll see a weapon lying on the floor and think to yourself, well, I have this length of pipe. I think I'll stick with the length of pipe. I would definitely recommend playing this one if you haven't, but otherwise, if nothing else, at least give it a watch through. It's quite the game. And lastly, we'll be talking about a game that I had to wait a fairly decent amount of time before I can get my hands on it. Dead Space. Now, I say I had to wait to play it because at the time, me and my cousin had a little setup where when one of us was done with the game, we would let the other one borrow it. Unfortunately, he was in love with this game. I think I had to wait until he 100%ed it before I can get my hands on it. And the wait was beyond worth it. Dead Space, at least the first one, is what I would consider an all-round, almost perfect horror experience. The environment, the enemies, the atmosphere, everything was just so goddamn horrifying. The sense of being completely isolated on this ship with nothing but essentially tools and a few real weapons at your disposal to take down these monstrous creatures of the night. It just did such a goddamn good job at what it was intending. As I said, graphically, it holds up fairly well. The characters themselves, people-wise, look a little funky nowadays, but character builds, enemy builds, environment, everything holds up amazing, even to today. And one other little detail that made the game unique in its own little sense was its combat system. Whereas normally in shooters, be them first or third person, the idea is aim for the head, that will kill monsters quicker. Dead Space introduced a system that actually dissuaded and in certain cases punished players that decided to go for the headshot route. Weirdly enough, total dismemberment is the only way to defeat your enemies in this game. I don't know who came up with that idea, but kudos on them. So that's pretty much Dead Space. I'm not going to go into a full review on it, but just brushing up on it, and that pretty much wraps up the last little game. And that pretty much wraps things up, ladies and gentlemen. Again, this was in no particular order or fashion. This was just my view of a couple games that fit the bill for the season. Now, before I go, there are two games that I would like to throw an honorable mention out there too. The first being PT, and by extension the never-to-be-released Silent Hills. For everyone that had a chance to play PT, you can all see how that would have turned out amazingly. For those who haven't played it, go on YouTube. Check it out. You'll see what it would have been. Second honorable mention I want to throw out there is to a indie game entitled Layers of Fear. It's still currently in early access, but it's actually pretty freaking amazing. I had a chance to sit down with Urban and my cousin to play it, and yeah, it's actually a very spooky dooky experience. A little bit on the side of where it kind of had me not wanting to continue out of just being a bit of a punk, but overall pretty grand experience. Anyway folks, this has been Abel. Happy Halloween. Stay safe out there.